Welcome to the Smash Jump Podcast, your place for honest and passionate gaming conversations. Today, we're going to be talking about the classic and the modern, the oldies and the new hotness, the retro and the future. Are older games better, or do all the bells and whistles of the newer games give them a leg up? What do we miss from old games, and what do we loathe from the new? We're going to talk about all of that and so much more. I'm Ashton Lavelle, your host and Smash Jump contributor, and today with me are some awesome people that will introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Gabe. I am the editor-in-chief and founder of Smash Jump.
I'm Nicole Rodriguez Galdo, and I'm a contributor at Smash Jump.
Hello, I am Sam Flanagan. I am the video production manager and also a contributor for Smash Jump.
All right. So, first thing that we've got to talk about is what you've been playing. Sam, since you're new on the podcast, I'm more
Hey.
curious. What are you playing or what have you been playing recently?
So I've actually been playing quite a lot of things. To say that I work a 9 to 5 and I barely have any time free, I've surprisingly played a lot of cool stuff lately. Recently, my partner and we have this thing where I pick a game, she picks a game, then we play a game together. It's a very
Nice.
nice system. It's been working so far. Probably won't work in the next couple of months, but we'll see because might be some fighting. Who knows? But I've been playing Evil West. I bought that ages ago. Finally got around to playing it. And I have very mixed feelings on it. It's way too brutal. Granted, I was playing on hard difficulty, but there is like another difficulty above that. I don't think I'll probably go for that, just because the first playthrough was just way too difficult. Throw as many enemies as possible. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. Very God of War 2018 inspired. Marvel Rivals is a big one as well. Been playing. I think I've clocked in maybe around 30 hours of that, and that's really fun. I'm very surprised on that one. Very, very, very surprised. Made the mistake of going for the platinum trophy as well, which I'm regretting, but I'm about 64% of the way there, so I've committed to it now. And very recently, the Dead Rising remake. Love Dead Rising. I'm so glad it's back. And we've got about maybe 4 hours in that, and that's so enjoyable. So enjoyable. A lot of things have been cut down, for obviously modern times, but it's still at its core Dead Rising. So yeah, surprisingly, quite a lot of things I played recently. Quite
We'll
a
have
lot.
to circle back to the Dead Rising once we really get into the conversation about old versus new, because I'm sure remakes are definitely going to come up.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
whichever one, whoever wants to follow that up, what y'all been playing?
I will say that based on our conversation the other day, Ashton, you mentioned Inscription. And I went back in the other day just because why not? I think I went back in. It was it Friday afternoon, and I was like, oh, I haven't touched this game since November. I'll just do a run. I did a run that I got some sort of like God mode ability where I just got like permanent squirrels every time I used one. So I
Oh
was
yeah.
able to like get all the things, the grizzly bears, the sharks I needed, and I beat the game. And it got really
Let's
weird and
go.
meta. Yeah, I beat it in like one run. When I came back, I was like, wow, playing all these card games has really helped me out with my deck building. So yeah, it was excellent. Loved it. It was weird, meta, and freaked me out.
So I
So
was gonna say,
yeah,
wait. You beat the game, but which part did you beat? Did you go through
exactly.
the whole thing, or?
Exactly. So I went through the different kill stages and I beat Leshy. But there's other things I haven't done yet. So I beat the game of that. I'm now going
Right.
back in to do all the little bits and bobs that I haven't done because I'm sure there's other weird stuff going on. Um,
She's
yeah.
one layer deep. She's one layer deep. She's
Yeah.
got more to go.
Don't worry, that's what I assumed was happening. I was in the room and Leshy was. I tried to take his photo and he was like, "Nah, mate,
Like you
nah,
ain't doing that today.
you ain't, there's no film in that camera." And I was like, "Damn it!" And I was like, "There's more to this." So we'll see. But yes, I did when I beat it, one layer. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
suspected. Yeah.
I'm excited for you to see more. Gabe,
Mm.
last time you were playing Indiana Jones. Have you picked up anything since then?
Um, a little bit, though, like mostly it's been like just here and there rounds of like Ready or Not. And then a game that I'm gonna actually talk about later because it ties into a topic that we have for this podcast. But I did read like an interesting article. Um, it's by Giant Freaking Robots. It was an interview with Screen Rant and Game Rant's founder, Vic Holterman, who he sold the two sites to Valnet after actually coming into like struggles like trying to appease the Google overlords. And this was, early on in like entertainment space in the size of it being now. Because Screen Rant and Game Rant are pretty big deals. And he decided to sell them just basically because he felt that it was time because he couldn't really maintain the same level of what Google wanted because everywhere else was now trying to get their sites up on Google's rankings, and in fact it's kind of just going full circle where big sites are becoming basically the only thing that you're going to see on the front page of Google.
Hmm.
It
So
is
just a
difficult.
real happy-go-lucky article you're reading there.
Yeah, I was gonna
Real
say, like,
positive outlook.
Yes.
Hooray.
this, wow.
Gabe
Thank you for
Gabe hasn't
that.
been playing games. He's been in the trench. He's been in the
Yeah, I was gonna
trenches.
say, I've
Yeah.
been mostly seeing some really negative stuff on the internet, all the stuff with the fires. Hope everyone's okay who's over there
Mhm.
dealing with that. It's terrible. And I've just been like, wow, this is terrible. I want to go bury my head in the sand because the world is awful,
The
you
world is
know?
burning.
Yeah, it's literally on fire.
Literally on
So,
fire.
yeah.
Well, I have been playing a lot more of a happier game
I'm sure you have.
than that. Actually, it's ironic because it literally, or it's coincidental because it's a game literally about restoring nature, so that's fun. Um, and it's relevant here because it's an older game. I've been playing Okami. If you follow me on
Oh,
Twitter and Blue Sky, you know that I'm about 7 hours into Okami at this point. Classic PS2 Wii game, Zelda, very Zelda in how it's like made. But gosh, it might be an all timer, y'all. That might be an all timer. It's hitting all the notes. I like Zelda games, and it's doing the formula a little like simpler than a lot of like Zelda is. Like it's holding your hand a little bit more than I'd like, so that's one knock against it. But the art style is gorgeous. The music is beautiful. The theme of like restoring nature is really like hitting home right now. And the writing and charm of it is like off the charts. Like I am smiling and laughing. It feels like every 5 minutes. That game is incredible so far. I've got a lot to go, but it's got a really strong start and I'm excited to see where it goes. And that leads us to our main topic of this show, which is the older games versus the newer games. There's a lot to talk about with it, and everybody's going to have an opinion, and I'm sure there's going to be some disagreements here as well. So, just like we are going to do here, if you have an opinion, go ahead and write it in the comment section below. And if you get into a discussion with somebody, be cool, man. We're all humans. We all have our different beliefs and we all have our different opinions. It's cool to disagree. Just be nice about it, right?
it's
Yeah.
fun to
So,
disagree sometimes too. I like arguing with
exactly. That
people.
Yeah.
arguments and discussion back and forth is how you foster understanding, right? And you understand somebody better after the end of it. So, I think the very first thing that we need to do to start this conversation off is establish what is an old
I was
game,
about to
right? Because
ask, what
that's going to
constitutes
change.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what is an old game to you guys, right? Because there's a lot of different ways you could go about it, and I think a lot of it is determined and very informed by when you started playing games. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, and again, I'm going to throw it to Sam first because it was like the impetus for him coming onto this podcast.
Yeah.
What is your definition of an old or retro game at this point in time?
I would probably say maybe anything that is over probably maybe around about 6 or 7 years. There's a maybe even more than that. Thinking when you were just asking and describing that, then I was thinking maybe about 10. Anything
I
that's
was gonna
10
say
years
because
or
if you did
older.
seven, if you did only seven, then I think the PS4 would qualify, right?
Yeah.
Came out in
Oh,
2013.
in a way, yeah. Because that would be like a whole generation. That would be a whole
Hmm.
generation before. So technically, you can class them as older games. I think whenever I'm talking about older games, so I'm thinking maybe a bit older. I'm thinking maybe PS2, PS3, and obviously PS1 region. I started mostly gaming around the Xbox 360, PS3 days. Halo, Call of Duty, Gears of War, all those games that were coming out around that time. That's when I really dived into the world of video games a lot more. And I would class them probably as my interpretation of older games. And if you kind of look at like, as we were talking about Dead Rising earlier, that was an Xbox 360 title. Now that's been remade.
Hmm.
There are other games like Halo has had a lot of, I wouldn't say remakes, but remasters with CE Anniversary, 2 Anniversary, the rumors about 3 Anniversary. And then the Master Chief Collection is obviously something that's come out and kind of put them all into one package. Gears of War also had a remaster with the Ultimate Edition, I think it was called. So games around that area, I think they're mostly remasters as opposed to remakes. I don't think Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I don't even think it's actually a remake. I think it is just with a fresh coat of paint in a different engine, so that doesn't technically qualify for remake. But then you look at something like Resident Evil 2, 3, 4, 1 as well, all remakes. They're much older games around the PS2, PS1 region. I don't know. I think it's a topic that will probably never die. It's a topic that has a lot of gray area. It depends how you personally view older games, but for me, I think anything from the PS1 to the PS3 era of games would probably qualify as an old game. But what you said, Ashton, is a good point about PS4. Technically speaking, if you're going with the thought process that I have, where it's like 6 or 7 years, PS4 would technically qualify as older games because
Hmm.
it's a completely different generation. Now, whether or not you guys agree with me, or if you guys think about maybe beyond that, SNES, Game Boy, that sort of stuff, then that's obviously, this is what I mean where I say like the conversation, it's everyone's going to have different opinions on it. There isn't really one right way to
Yeah.
give a definitive answer for that one.
Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to note, by the way, like, yeah, we're gonna probably, I at least want to talk about like remakes and remasters later in this podcast, but
Yep, I just
yeah,
added that to our show doc as
yeah,
well to remind
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, but if we went with 7 years, yeah, that would be a little bit too new for me and what I think of, like, because I started gaming during the PS2 days. Um but generally speaking, like that's why for like Smash Jump, I have like a rule for like anniversary posts. They have to be, with some minor exceptions, um, at least 10 years old because it just makes sense.
Right, a decade. That's a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
So I'm kind of like, um,
Yeah.
I don't consider PS4 and Xbox One retro or
No.
old yet. And I think the biggest reason for that is because things are still coming out on it. And I think that might be a conversation about like how console generations are changing in the modern era because it feels like with how much slower the PS5 and Xbox Series X got adopted, it felt like those, Sony and Microsoft were really trying to make sure they make their money off of their games, so they were forcing these things on earlier systems.
Hmm.
But I think the fact that PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are still so widely prevalent, and a lot of people still don't have a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, or the games are still being released on there. I think I keep that still as like a modern thing. And if you really look at, if you take off the highest of the high quality, right? Like the biggest budget, highest graphical fidelity games, you take that out, right? And you just look at the average looking game on a PS4 versus a PS5. I don't think the difference is that astronomical to where if you play a PS4 game or you play a PS5 game, you're like, wow, this is so old and this one's so new. I don't think that we're at that point yet. Maybe if we get to like PS6, PS7, the ray tracing's off the charts and all that stuff, maybe. But I think we're reaching sort of like a tipping point like a peak when it comes to how good games can look. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say PS3, Xbox 360 is like where the bar hits. Um, I would also wonder because if we think about it, because the PS4 was 2013.
Hmm.
Um, okay, the Switch was a lot later. Okay, I was wondering because Switch is so weird because obviously like there is no other one, right? There is no Switch 2 yet. But the
Nope.
games are so low, like lower fidelity than the PlayStation, even the PlayStation 4. So it's like I wonder how much of what a retro-esque game is can really be defined as just the time period it came out, or if you can also throw in like how a game looks, feels, or what it's capable of because of the system it's on. That's a weird conversation. I don't know if y'all guys want to get into it, but yeah, I would probably say anything PS3, 360 backwards is
Hmm.
kind of where I fall on retro. And then if you go before, like I started on PS1, like I I probably gamed the most on PS2 and 3, but like my first console was PS1 and Spyro, and so that's like ancient, you know? Like that's not that is definitely retro. So I think
Yeah.
360's PS3 is probably where I limited it. What
I
do you think, Nicole?
Yeah, I think that so we're all varying age ranges here.
Hmm.
So we all had different experiences. And the thing is with supporting what Sam said, because I don't entirely agree, but I don't entirely disagree. Because like technology is always changing. So and things get outdated really quickly. And we do have console generations for a reason, and things become antiquated a lot faster. But I think I'm in a similar boat as you, Ashton, which is so for me, I started gaming on the original Xbox. My first games were Halo 1 and 2. And I mainly did that for a while, and then 360, and then I started graduating into the bigger gaming space. And for me, like the real retro period was like the 2000s, and then maybe like a smidge of the early 2010s because like but even then when I look at it, so like I think about BioShock 1 was in the first 10 years, but then like BioShock Infinite is just a little bit after that. And I always think of BioShock Infinite as this amazing, beautiful, revolutionary game, one of my favorites of all time. And now I go back and play it and I'm like, wow, this kind of looks like butt compared to like now.
Yeah, yeah.
But like so to me, I was like, oh no, this is becoming a bit retro. That's disgusting. It's 12 years ago now. So yeah, I'm definitely in the 360 older kind of bracket because when I was growing up, I obviously never saw the Xbox as retro. I was always like, I'm the new kid on the block. Because it was it was the new console. There were so many other
Yeah.
older things before that I felt silly. Like back in 2011 and 12, I'd be talking to kids who were just getting their first 360 at school or something, a few years younger than me, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're a bit old, you played on the original Xbox," and I'm like, It's not old yet, like calm down." But now it's like, "Oh no,
That's
no,
old.
we're
Yeah.
there, bit
Yeah.
gross."
It's
So
old now.
It's
yeah, I
also
feel
like
old.
the graphical fidelity question is also weird because let's take um a Bethesda game from like the beginning of the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 lifespan, Oblivion, right? That game
Mhm.
looks like potato. Like that game looks like butt compared to even Skyrim, which
What
came
was
out the
with
same generation
the
later.
weird choice of just choosing that muddy color on all the games of that like around that period, like
It was
GTA and Skyrim all had that murky, realistic color
Resident
that
Evil
made it all
4
like
had it.
gross.
It
The
Yeah.
the brown
yeah.
filter. I know
What
exactly what
was
you
Yeah, the
mean.
that?
filter.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's like
no,
the
that
way of the time. It's like you can look at movies of that time too, where like
yeah.
it all has like a gray blue tint to it. Like obviously people are gonna get angry in the comments because this game didn't. Like Oblivion didn't have it because it's a very
No.
bright, colorful game. But like, come on, guys, you know what we're talking about. Like there's a very
Yeah.
clear like trend that happened, and just because things break away from it doesn't mean the trend doesn't exist.
They fell from like colorful and pretty to dirt. And it's like, what happened in that tiny space of time?
I
Not
guess it's to
sure.
make it more realistic, probably.
Yeah.
Probably things are trying to be darker, grittier,
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of
and
thing.
usually it didn't work. But
Like I think now there's a trend for smoother, brighter, more colorful, rounder kind of art style, like the Fortnite style kind of thing, where it's a little things like to look a little bit more cartoony, a little
The new
less like
Dragon Age.
rough. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
mhm.
Things
oh.
look way smoother and like that's also a thing, I think. Like obviously I think now we've reached a point where the art styles are kind of equalizing to where you're seeing a lot of different things. Like Black Myth Wukong does not look like that at all. It's very detailed. But like I noticed it especially with these like live service games and stuff. Like they like to go for that cartoony Fortnite trend, I guess because they're trying to hit that audience. And every time I see it, I'm kind of just like, okay, like I've seen this before. I don't. It doesn't stand out to me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, So like Dragon
Redfall,
Age.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Oh my God, don't get me started on Redfall. Yeah. Oh my God, don't anything Arcane. I just want to go like
I forgot that
curl up into a
existed.
ball.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about Arcane was the weird art style. Like everyone was like just really ugly and weird looking. In like all the right ways. Like they looked like kind of like an oil painting. They were really wrinkly and had loads of weird indents in their faces because people are just, everyone looks different. And I remember being like, wow, this is just a staple of Arcane. Like playing Prey, I
Right.
remember just everyone's faces were terrifying. And then like you come over to Redfall and it's all just like, oh yeah, a bit happy and bubbly. And it's like,
But also it's
where did they
vampires, so like
go?
why is it like
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, oh my God. I actually played that entire game on my second playthrough at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Not because I enjoyed it, but because my friend and I hate played it because we love
Redfall's biggest defender is a
Arcane.
hate player.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's
Same with
it's just a bit
Suicide Squad.
gross. Oh, don't get me started on that.
Oh
But like, if
God.
you look at like the new Dragon Age, right? Definitely has that colorful, bright filter on it,
Yeah.
and people obviously
Yep.
have a lot of issues, as they kind of should, because when you look at the previous Dragon Ages, and especially the first one, it was very, it wasn't like the doo-doo filter just like entirely, but it was definitely around that time that filter was kind of coming in, and then now it's like it's entirely lost that gritty murderous kind of nature about it. There's a lot of blood and gore in there. And I think that annoyingly, it's also an accessibility thing because when you start putting that much blood and violence in your games, younger audiences can't play it. Or some parents are a bit more like, oh yeah, you can't go near that. So I feel like the Fortnite
Interesting.
approach works for everyone, I guess, and it's kind of a bit eh.
I agree with you in that regards. My partner recently did actually play Inquisition, and I just so happened to like look at the gameplay, and I thought, this looks all right, looks pretty decent. Graphically wise, yeah, fine. There's no issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes characters' hairs looks really shiny for some reason, and I thought,
Yeah, yeah.
how much hair gel have you put in? It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I looked at the Veil Guard and I was like, oh my God, what happened? Like from here to there, like something clearly has like gone wrong. And I think kind of what people are trying to do is maybe like we were saying, chase that Fortnite trend of everything has to be like cartoony and
Yeah.
blocky to appeal to the kids. Which is kind of something that really bugs me about newer games is that they want to try and bring as many people into the fold even if it's not really targeted for them. Like Call of Duty, for example, now is just a shell of its former self, and that's chasing the Fortnite trend and bringing things in like you can play as Homelander from The Boys. And the thing
Mm.
is that kids like as young as about 5 sometimes play Call of Duty. I mean, Modern Warfare 2 lobbies, you had 6-year-olds calling you all sorts of names, which I won't repeat, um, because we won't get
Yeah.
usually will come down on us with the hammer. Um,
Yep.
but the thing is, like, even they'll throw all these different things in, and they'll try and appeal to as many different kinds of people as possible. Even like having celebrities. I don't get why Snoop Dogg or Nicki Minaj is in Call of Duty. I don't understand it. I really don't. But the thing is that people will see that Nicki Minaj is in it, they'll want to buy Call of Duty, and then they'll want to get the skin, and so that's around about like nearly $100 that's going to Activision, who has much more money than that. So
Right. Yep.
I think that's ultimately what kind of annoys me a little bit about newer games, the monetization
Hmm.
aspect of it. Um, that's the one thing that really gets on my nerves. The amount of battle passes and item shops. Halo Infinite really just stabbed me in the heart when I saw it had an item shop. Yeah, I think that's largely where my discourse for newer games has come from. So I,
And
I
Yeah.
always
so,
go back to the older
yeah.
ones.
So I am curious before we dive too deep, because microtransactions is definitely something we're going to be talking about. I do want to get a little bit more context when we start talking about old games and new games. Is what was the last old game? If we do, we all agree Xbox 360 and PS3 is like a good bar for what an old game is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for our age, yeah.
Okay, so the question would be, what was
You
the
make us sound so
last game
old.
that you made that was, I know, right? What was the last game you played that you would consider old? And I would include the remasters because I'm playing, like I would say Okami because obviously I'm playing it right now, and I am playing the HD version, but they're practically the same. Just it looks sharper, and I can play it in HD. So
I'm
like
just
that
pulling
one
up my
doesn't count.
achievements. Give me a second.
Does anybody know off the top of their head, outside of me and Okami, what's the last old game you played? Maybe
Um,
Sam with Dead Rising or Gabe, do you have one?
I'd say like I have two generally ones that would be considered old. One of them being Mirror's Edge.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What a
I
throwback.
love that game. I
Yeah.
love the style. And then also Sly Cooper.
Wow. So when did
That's
you go play
the
those?
that one was actually one of the games that I played fairly recently.
Okay.
That one was the one that I was talking about that I talk about later.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it look, I just love I didn't realize I actually do like platformers. Um, because modern platformers aren't the same.
And now Astrobot's got you in there. You're ready.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
The whole
That's
new world now.
Deserved it.
yeah.
100% deserves it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, Sly Cooper and Mirror's Edge. Mirror's Edge, like the fact that it was made by Dice is just
That
astounding
is
to me.
crazy.
But
Yeah.
also it has horrible combat. Uh
I didn't know that combat at all. I'm gonna be so real.
The
that's
parkour's good.
yes, the parkour is great. Everything except for the combat and gunplay are great.
You can shoot a gun
Well,
in Mirror's Edge.
yep. Oh wait.
Really?
Oh no, that's Mirror's Edge Catalyst you can, I believe.
Ah,
Uh
right.
I was
in
gonna
the
say, I swear
original
you can, but I didn't
one,
remember which one it was.
yeah, no, in the original one you can't. But
They were like, "How do we make parkour better?" I don't know. Give her a gun. I
Give her a gun.
don't know.
I've been trying to pitch around an article for an anniversary post for Mirror's Edge for the longest time now. And obviously that's gone past that, but I basically equated it to being like it's so rare that you see a game do like something that is not considered fun and make that a core mechanic because all you're really doing is going from point A to point B. And that's not fun. Like in the end, what Mirror's Edge was not like, oh, you're going from point A to point B like you do in any other game. You're literally going from point A to point B.
And the fun is the movement, right? Like
Yes.
how you do it.
Yep, exactly. And there's multiple ways you can do it. It is a very versatile game, and unfortunately, Catalyst failed, so we're just never going to see another game.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, what other
Sorry.
retro games were the last things that we played?
I've got quite an extensive little shebang, so
Of course
I'm
you
gonna
do.
I realized I went scroll through and I went, oh yeah, I'm full of crap. There's a lot in there. By a lot, I mean these aren't really that old, but so I went back into Dark Souls 1, the non-remastered edition.
Let's go. Let's
And
go.
it plays like butt.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Well,
whoa,
good
whoa,
cut.
whoa.
Hold on, hold on. It plays like butt only because I just came off of like Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3
Ah,
again, and
fair.
stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it took me a minute to get used to it again, and then I adapted to the older, you know.
No omni roll, you just gotta.
No, this is true. So yeah, I've been enjoying a bit of that. You know, it's like I really can feel the difficulty, especially in the older controls. Once you get used to it, you know, it's such a
I got the
fantastic.
platinum for that last year.
I'm still working on that. I'm terrified. I'm gonna be like doing
It's
some.
bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
The grinding is really bad.
I don't want to do it, but I want to try and 100% as much as I
I
can of the
went,
Dark
the
Souls games.
library part where with the
Yeah,
stairs and stuff.
yeah.
I was on that stair doing circles for like 3 hours trying to get a single drop from a single enemy. That's like 1%.
Oh
And you can
Christ.
get it up to like 3 if you have all the right items on. It is miserable. It is miserable.
I'm
Put on a
assuming you looked up
podcast, have a
a
friend to talk
guide
to.
a guide for this when you were looking up that, or did you already know
Yeah,
about
I had a
yourself?
buddy too. So we were
Okay.
both grinding two different things. And then,
Yeah.
so I cut that time in half. If you're doing it all
Oh.
solo, you're going to be grinding for
Yeah,
like
I don't have enough friends.
forever.
This is gonna be painful.
It's going to be forever.
Oof.
So I've got
Oof.
that. I went back and played The Secret of Monkey Island, which is pretty old, but they put
Right.
it on 360. So I have that, you know, the Sea of Thieves Monkey Island expansion thing kind of like made me want to go back into that and then play the new one as well. Mass Effect 1, I dabbled. I was missing you know, back when I really loved what BioWare was doing. Dragon Age, the new one, was a bit of a miss in some ways, but I did like it. But it just wasn't Mass Effect 1 level. Alan Wake 360 edition. I'm trying to 100% that nightmare. Plays like arse. Still love it. I love Remedy. Still wearing my control shirt. You know, I'm forever Sam Lake's biggest fan. But and then the last thing was I had the Master Chief Collection, but I actually went to a retro gaming bar to go just play video games with my dad. And because I grew up playing them with my dad, and I was like, hey, let's go to this bar and let's play Halo. And they were like, we don't have Halo here. And I was like, what the hell? So I took my own copy of Halo 2 and I was like, let's drink and see how much Halo we can get through.
Oh my
You
goodness.
can do it in under like 3 hours if you really
Oh
like,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I did it on Legendary in under 3 hours, but we did it on like normal in under like 3 hours. It's doable.
If you
So
know all the speedrun strats, you can get it being like
yeah.
quite quick.
I was grenade jumping all over the gaff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but that's my list.
Me and my friends we're gonna be going to a video game bar next weekend because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Wait. It's also my birthday and I'm doing a similar thing.
Whoa,
What day is
whoa.
your birthday?
Oh no, I was born on the 17th of January.
I'm the 18th of January. Interesting.
This is really interesting. But we're gonna go to a video game bar, and I rang up the place, and I was like, "Listen, do you have Halo?" And they were like, "Yeah, we do. It's on Game Pass." So yeah, I'm like, "Thank God, right? Okay." So there's gonna be about like 10 of us all playing Halo. I'm gonna force them all to sit down and 4v4 and see if who comes out on
What
top.
Y'all are
map?
gonna
What
go into
map?
the bar together, like you're gonna be in the same bar, and you're gonna have to do like a Western standoff. Like there's not
Yeah.
enough room for the two of us.
But what map are you guys going to be killing each other on? That's the important question.
Valhalla,
Oh, so Blood Gulch, or is it
Valhalla,
Halo
no,
3 Valhalla? Is it Halo
Valhalla.
3?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Basically, Halo 3 Valhalla. Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
I depends. I don't know because depends what they have. I've
I was
requested
gonna
for
say,
them to have Master Chief Collection so I can just go from one to the other to the other to the other.
yeah,
I hope they remember
People,
to download the games.
well, they should do. I put it in the additional
yeah,
notes.
yeah.
Right.
When I
Because it's
made the
easy to
booking.
click the install on Steam and then just forget that
Yeah,
you have to go in there and each download one.
yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully you never know. The one that I wanted to talk about, the one that I don't want to count Dead Rising because it's technically a remaster, and I did go through the entire Mass Effect trilogy, but that was the Legendary edition. So I think the one like the original that I played recently was the original Silent Hill 2. And that
Excellent.
one is a very good game, incredible game. I get why people love it, so fair enough. I do think there is a lot of things in there that can be improved on, which the remake slightly kind of did. But there are also things that the remake did that kind of made the original better. But that original game, there's just so much stuff in there that I get again, I get why people like it. I really do. I understand why people like it. The atmosphere, the characters, the story, the themes. It's just it's like a one of a kind experience. Like you're not going to find that anywhere else. Um, so I'd probably say that that one would be the one for myself. And occasionally maybe a bit of like Master Chief Collection, Halo Reach, Halo 2, etc. But I'll always go back to them.
So we've
Big
actually got
fan.
quite a nice little range here of older games.
Yeah.
So it kind of leads us to the biggest question here of, and maybe you don't have an answer. That's perfectly okay if you haven't, if you don't have a stance. You don't have to make a hardline stance, die on a hill that you don't believe in,
We
right?
will. We'll
But
draw a line in the sand somewhere.
yeah. So are older games better than newer games? Or as a potential third option, because it could be a false dichotomy, is there a middle ground where there's benefits to both either way? But I guess in general, if you go that direction, I would want to know which one you lean towards more in terms of like which one do you more fondly care about or remember, right? And then also, how much does your nostalgia play or not play into this question?
So
There's a lot of
yeah,
good questions on that.
that's I would say it depends because here's the thing. If you are someone who prefers consistency, then you probably will prefer modern games. But if you want like a variety or experimentation, older games are a lot better. Like again, Mirror's Edge is a good example. What's the like aside from Catalyst, what's the last game that actually has made something similar? What's the last studio that's made something similar? Um, or you have like I don't know if anyone here has heard of the game Stuntman. Um, you literally just play as a stuntman for various like fictional movies. And you have to do it all in one take. You have to, generally speaking, follow the director and producer's orders of, overtaking vehicles in a certain time, breaking through boxes, squeezing through a gap, things like that. And I can't think of any game that is similar to that. Like, meanwhile, you have Suicide Squad, which is just the same
Let's
as
not.
every other game. Uh, you have you have like Concord, which was uh just Overwatch 2.
Again, let's not. Let's not do it.
Just saying, like
Yeah.
games nowadays are literally just the same thing except for the indie scene. The
Yeah.
indie scene
Mm.
is a
There's a
lot
lot of good
more
stuff.
of wiggle room in finding unique concepts, even in the double A scene, where, yeah, these games might be similar to other games, but they do things right to the point of being able to stand on their own. But old games, they had to stand on their own. They had to be unique because it was such a niche like hobby at that time that you just needed to.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Just on the back of like what you said about indie games, I completely agree. Where that's where
Yeah.
you will find your unique titles. Like I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a game called Killer Frequency. We played that recently. It's made by the same people, Team 17, Overcooked, Moving Out, great
Mm-hmm.
games. But in that we basically play as a radio DJ based in the 70s or the 80s, and you have people calling in because you to cut a long story short, you basically are like acting as a 911 operator, and there is a serial killer out on the loose, and you have to help the people who call in survive. You can kill everybody, or you can help people survive all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen something like that done before. So that instantly just drew me to it. And there's other indie games where I've seen like Darkwood. I really want to play Darkwood at some point. I don't know if anyone's ever played that. But that's a top-down horror game, like a survival horror game where you're looking at it from a top-down perspective. And that to me just sounds unique and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
AAA companies, they won't do something like that because it's not a viable investment. That's why you get live service games where they just keep repeating the same thing. Gear, battle passes, skins, item shops. You see it all the time in every single kind of modern game. And I think that
Mm.
really does turn people off. Marvel Rivals is kind of similar to Overwatch. It's 5v5 or 6v6, I can't remember which. And you basically are doing the same thing. Like you'll have this thing that you have to stay close to, and it just moves around the map. It's the exact same game, but it reminds people of what came before with Overwatch 1. Overwatch 2 is just an absolute mess. Overwatch 1 was a very, very fun package, and Marvel Rivals has kind of
Okay.
reminded people about that. So I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of like my take on it. But I do agree with what you say about indie games. That's where you'll definitely find the unique stuff. And I think that with the older games where the big ones like Dead Rising, Halo, whatever, standing on their own doing different things, that's where they kind of like transition into the indie scene now. That's where you'll find all of your unique titles. If you want to go for the same basic slop, then you know where to go. Pick up Suicide Squad in your local store somewhere.
Yeah, I more or less agree there. So, I love indie games. I think I completely agree. You know, the indies are the only things really for me that are truly experimenting and having fun. You know, I am so obsessed with Balatro. It is actually incredibly unhealthy. Thank God there's no real money tied to that game. I love it so
He'd be
much.
rich. He'd be
Oh my,
rich.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a few fails recently, but I did beat it a couple times, so yay. But yeah, I feel that like when it comes to um indies, I feel there's been so many times where I get invested into a beautiful story and the music and the art and the feelings that you get are the main focus on that, while I feel a lot of AAA titles just don't want that. They just want my money.
Yeah.
Outer Wilds, have to always remember to distinguish the two, is technically an indie. One of
Yep.
the best, most like life-changing games I've ever experienced. I can't talk about it without spoiling it. There's my music for it. It's so emotional, and I've never seen a story be told to you in the way that the game delivers it. Like I've never seen anything like it before. It's incredible. And I don't think anybody is in the AAA space is replicating that kind of creativity. But in terms of like the AAA scene now and games now and in the past, I do feel that back in the day, obviously, games used to be a lot more creative. They had to be more unique. So, I agree with you there, Gabe, when you
Mhm.
mentioned that. But I will say that as a fan of multiplayer, I love Sea of Thieves, I love Dead by Daylight, I love Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six Siege is like my life, and PUBG, I love PUBG. We need the modern technology in order to be able to enjoy these multiplayer games to like the fullest. And there are so many things we can do now because of the way technology has gone. So for me, I have a weird middle ground where I'm like, okay, indies nowadays are where the good stories are at. And multiplayer games are where the modern technology is really helping it and where I'm the biggest fan. But when it comes
Yeah.
to a long single player AAA experience, I'm heading back to like 2013 and backwards. With the BioShocks and the Mass Effects and Halo back in the day. So yeah,
I
that's
think
me.
it's just because they're classics.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
look on them fondly. But kind of some of the Ashton pointed out, nostalgia does play a very, very, very big factor when you're talking about older games. Like I look at Halo and I remember playing with my buddies, making cool maps and having loads of custom games and then finishing the fight and all these memories where I think back on and I'm just like I'm really glad that I lived through that period of the world, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That period of time it was like literally where I could just get home from school, just boot up Halo Reach, make some cool maps. We even made machinimas back in the day. You remember that? Like making machinimas in Halo
Oh,
Reach. We made
oh,
that
did you?
because it
Is it
was
still up?
just so no, I got rid of them all
Oh,
No.
because they're cringe.
no.
I've still got all the hard drive
Fair.
stuff and everything.
I want to
So,
see it.
but that was like my like my thing, you know? Like I love
Mhm.
that. You look at it now and it's just a shell of its former self. But I think that when we're talking about like again going back to Halo, you look at 4, 5, Infinite, especially Infinite, because that one when it released just had a lot of things wrong with it and it was way too greedy. You look at what came before, Reach had like a lot of customization. It had like the best forge in the series, theater mode worked, you had playable elites, you had all this cool stuff. And then in Infinite, you've just got an item shop and 3 game modes, and that's it. Yeah, it's free to play, but when you're talking about a franchise that's gone around for about 20 years, you look back at the previous games and you think, we had it good. Why can't you just do the same thing that we did before? I kind of don't think that's fair though. Because you can still go back to the older ones and you can still experience them. Just because they're kind of not doing the same thing in the newer games, it doesn't completely negate that experience. Infinite still is a really good game, but just because it didn't have the features that the previous games did, people don't look at it that way. They just go straight back to the older ones, and that's fine. There's no issue with it. But I do think the nostalgia does have like a big factor with it. Like Nicole, you're a big Mass Effect fan, right? You like
Yeah,
Mass Effect, yeah.
yeah.
So when Andromeda came out and it didn't do the same things as the trilogy, were you annoyed by that?
When it came out, I saw everything that was happening and I went, I'm not playing that.
Okay, fair enough.
And then I went back and I tried playing it and yeah, I so that's the thing. It's and like I say the same thing about Halo to a degree. The nostalgia really does affect it. If it was I think if Mass Effect Andromeda was a brand new game, a brand new series trying to do what it did, and it didn't have Mass Effect like the name slapped on it, I would have probably been nicer to it. But the
Yeah.
nostalgia made it icky to me. I looked at it and I was like, what happened to my baby? You ruined something perfect. So, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
actually piggyback off that because I have so much to say from what you guys are saying. It's a great conversation going on here. Um, I'll piggyback immediately off the Andromeda because I did literally just stop playing that game when the year ended last year. December 31st was the last day that I played that game. I put 30 hours into Andromeda. And because I was curious, I love the original trilogy of Mass Effect. They're like in my top games of all time. And I was wondering if all the stuff that happened at launch had gotten patched up and fixed up, and now I can just play the game and see if there was actually something here. And so for me, the biggest thing that I ended up finding out, and it becomes really difficult, right, when you talk about modern games and your first experience with them, because my first experience is in 2024/25, where they've already went and tried to fix the animations, they've already gone in and made tweaks, right? They already tried to fix bugs and game breaking glitches. But for the people who played it in 2017, that's a completely different experience, which is not the way that games worked, back in the PS3 or
Hmm.
PS2 era, not PS3, but PS2, PS1. When a game, if it was broken, it was broken. If it
Yeah.
Yep.
worked, it worked. And that's all you could do, right? So I think that's a benefit of modern games is being able to fix stuff. Um, it's unfortunate that games will come out unfinished. And I think the biggest thing to do there is the players are going to have to punish that by not spending money to buy them because ultimately it's up to us to decide that we don't accept buy like a unfinished product to be put in front of us for us to
Yeah.
buy. If you're going to put out art, you should put out complete art the way that the developers wanted it to look, not the way that you force it out because you wanted the money, right?
Hmm.
I ended up not liking Andromeda very much. I ended up thinking that regardless of everything that got fixed up on it, it just didn't have the soul that the original trilogy had. The writing was off. It just did not hit the same highs. But I gave it a fair shot, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of want to go into a conversation about it's interesting how certain game elements were acceptable back in the older days, PS3 or before, but now are like no longer like won't fly, right? And I'm more talking about like Dragon's Dogma, right? Let's talk about Dragon's Dogma. When that came out last year, Dragon Dogma 2, I saw a lot of discourse about how it does its like fast travel system, right? It discourages you from fast traveling in its big open world because you get these stones that you use to fast travel, but they're limited. So you don't get to just do it whenever you want. You have to think and strategically use your stones as you get them throughout the game, and they're a finite resource. However, I saw a lot of discourse about people being upset by that because they were forced to go out into the world. It wasn't easy for them. They had to plan it out. They couldn't just go to like all the way to the far end of the map, go do something, and then teleport immediately back. They wouldn't have the stones for it. And the whole game kind of operates in that realm of like, it almost plays like an older game where a lot of stuff is more restrictive, right? Things are a little bit more finicky with how you get things done. It's not as smooth, fleshed out, and I would call it convenient as a lot of modern games do. I
Hmm.
think modern games have become so streamlined to the fact where PS2, PS1, even a little bit into PS3, game developers were figuring out what worked. And that's why games looked so different from each other. Now, I think a lot of AAA games look so similar because they figured out what works. And what we're seeing instead of brand new innovation, we're seeing iteration, right? Where we're seeing small improvements over time of what already works. Dragon's Dogma was an example of a brand new game that decided it had a vision and it wanted to work like the older games worked. It did that. And surprisingly, critics actually really liked it. But a lot of discourse online was about how these elements that would be present in older games that we say we love is also here, but now we hate it. And so I think that's a very interesting conversation and something that I struggle with because I understand growing world, people are busy, people don't want to waste time, people want to finish these experiences, but at the same time, I'm also at a point where take Dark Souls for instance, the first
I
one,
was
right?
gonna
It
say
takes
exactly
half the
that.
game to get fast travel. And
Yeah.
I love that because it
It's a
forces
reward.
yeah, it forces you to learn the world. And that world is so perfectly, masterfully connected that you learn to appreciate it because of that. In the other games, you get it immediately. Fast travel is from the
Yeah.
start. And I think I learned the levels and I appreciate the world less because of it. But it's more convenient and is more accessible to more people, so it gets put in. And I'm not necessarily sure that that's the right decision, but it is the decision that's are made. And
Hmm.
so I'm curious about you guys' thoughts on convenience versus player resistance and how games are made and how people seem to games now seem to want to make sure that people as many people can play it as possible, and so things are a lot more simpler or easy for players than they might have been back in the day.
So,
Well, it,
oh, go ahead.
no, go on, you first.
So when it comes to like specifically like fast travel and things like that, that also kind of feels like that is what I'm talking about when it comes to like may trying something different. Like because that is literally just point A to point B. And also it
Right.
helps to actually have an interesting world.
Right.
Um, I don't play a lot of like open world games. I just know that like the last actual open world game that I've played properly, I think is Skyrim. Technically I played Valhalla, but I didn't like Valhalla. So uh it had a boring world. And
Fair. Yeah.
that's the problem. Like if you the reason why these studios put fast travel into their games on the offset isn't necessary. I don't think it's actually for the convenience. It's to hide the fact that there aren't enough quests or missions or whatever to actually fill the world. Like there can be exceptions, but a lot of the times it feels like they just don't have enough for their game to actually fill the world. So they're just like, okay, we'll just give you this so that you don't have to trek through like 10 miles of in-game time, like 10 minutes of in-game time to get to your next quest.
Yeah. I
Spider
I kind of agree there. Yeah. Yeah. Go, Sam.
Spider-Man 2 did that, and that's one of the things that kind of really annoyed me about that game. Was like they expanded the world so that it was bigger, but there was still, well, not even the still same things amount, it's still same things to do. There was a lot less than the first game.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you make the world bigger doesn't mean that it's better
No,
at
No.
all.
no,
That's
no,
my
it
issue
Right.
with
doesn't.
Starfield, is it's just so big and empty, and it's like you can fly
Yeah.
from one place
Yep.
to another, but why would you when you can
That
just
exactly.
jump?
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
it's
You're
so
100% right
Stupid.
yeah.
because it the bet I going to Skyrim like Gabe just talked about. Like that's a
Mm.
game that I think has fast travel but doesn't use it because it's tried to cover up the world.
I was
It
gonna say
just
the same
uses it
about
as a
Elden Ring.
convenient thing. Yeah, Elden Ring, same thing, fast travel
Hmm.
through the graces, but it's more of a way to give you a checkpoint so that you can go back to places. But like the world of Skyrim and Elden Ring is very like good. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can just go from point A to point B without ever using
Yeah.
fast travel, and you will run into so much, right? But then like in Starfield, they blew it up because they were like, we're gonna give a bunch of planets instead. And the best part about Starfield was doing the quests, but it turned into more of like it felt better to play it like a mission based game where you're just teleporting place to place and doing the small mission in that one area than it did to go into a planet and then actually walk around because there was nothing around, like nothing interesting happening. And so I definitely agree with there with Nicole because that's one where I feel like the fast travel hurts it because it exposes as soon as you start looking at how those planets are constructed and you start seeing like, oh, this city has everything in it, this planet, this city has everything in it, and then everything surrounding that city on that entire planet is just nothing. You start to realize, oh, this game is not actually as like well constructed and thoughtfully put together as I was really hoping it to be. It felt like
Yeah.
the planets were arbitrary, which was
Mm-hmm.
really
Hmm.
disappointing to me.
Yeah, exactly. I hate Starfield. I hate it.
I
I
feel
I
like
don't
they could
tried
hate
have
it.
it, but I don't
slapped
like it.
they could have slapped all the cities from all the planets into one giant like Coruscant or something and
Yeah,
just
that'd be
Yeah,
done
cool.
that, and it
exactly.
would have been so much better instead of wasting all my time. Like
And
when
it
they
Yeah.
feels
talk
like they
about it,
like wasted time with the spaceship battles because they made this really
yeah,
cool like spaceship combat thing, but space in Starfield is literally just a PNG of a planet, and then you're in a
yeah,
little circle, and that's all you can do.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
might be
Yeah.
something in that circle, there might not be something in that circle, but that's it. You're
Mhm.
basically on a 2D plane, and there's nothing else going on. And I'm like, this isn't space. This is
No.
just what is this? Like,
Yeah. Like it benefits from fast travel in all the wrong ways.
hmm
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
I
literally
haven't
that's all
played
you can do.
I
yeah.
haven't played Starfield, but everything that
Oh.
you guys have just described sounds incredibly boring to me. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
I
lie.
got
Yeah.
I got bored. I haven't finished it. I watched like Greg Miller kind of funny. I watched him go and beat it like 7 times because that was more interesting than what I
You
was
watch
doing.
somebody else suffer for yourself.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just
So
you
skip through
didn't
Greg
have
Miller
to.
doing it because I love him. But
And like I did finish the main story, and I do think it's like the
I
best main
didn't.
story in a Bethesda game
Yeah.
that they've made so far. But like it's so hard to get to the end of it
I'm
because
on
it's
the
like all the
second to
magic's
last
gone.
mission, and I was like, I can't be, like especially when you're getting the like god powers, the Starborn stuff, when
Yeah.
you're like flying around. What the hell is that? The most boring thing ever. Like, make it a puzzle that I have to like solve. Add some depth to this. Yeah, Starfield was
Yeah.
it feels so hollow, and they talked about the how big the world that was the universe was going to be, and I was thinking to myself, this just sounds like No Man's Sky. Why are you procedurally generating a planet's surface for me to go and futz around on for when I go and like kill animals and stuff? But then like I end up it like loads me into a different version of the world. I can't like just run to the city. The city generates in its own thing. You've got to specifically say you want to go to a city. If you don't say you want to go to the city, you want to go to the planet, then it just generates a bland planet of like what you'd expect to be there. And I literally was like, this is just No Man's Sky again, and I hate it. So
Am I
I
right in
didn't hate
thinking that?
Starfield, but that.
Am I right in thinking that when you're on a planet, you can't? There's no vehicles, so you have to like get back in your
There
ship
are
They
and then
now.
go
added
to
them in
another.
later, yeah.
Right. Okay. Because remember there was a huge discourse online where it's like you can land on a planet, but then you see it's like 500 meters and you have to
Yeah.
walk all the way over there,
I
and
never
then there's
thought
nothing there. So
I would miss
Yep.
the Mako from Mass Effect 1 so much. 'Cause-
Yeah, at least it got you somewhere faster. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Unpopular
our feet
opinion.
are not that
so-
fast.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
Mako's actually all right. I think it gets a bad rap.
I've learned to
I
love
like
it
the
now that
Mako.
I've experienced other games, and I'm like, wow, I didn't realize
Mako's
how good I
fine.
had
Like,
it.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Nomad's
Hammerhead.
terrible. Andromeda's Nomad's terrible, but Mako's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
May I
I
introduce
take
you
back
to
every
the
bad thing I said about
Hammerhead
it.
in Mass Effect 2? The Hammerhead in Mass Effect 2. That
I
was just.
disliked that so
It
much.
was made of
Mm.
paper mache. I
It
swear
was
to God.
Yeah.
it was just DLC as well, wasn't it? It was just like, oh hey,
The
here's a
the
thing.
Firewalker DLC. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had
Ugh.
to ride it,
Yeah.
and then about three Geth troopers shot you, and then that's it. It blows up, and you're like, okay, I guess I have to do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing about like older games that I just prefer is, and I know this is rich coming from someone who is a PlayStation fan, games are way too cinematic now.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, we may disagree here.
I like cutscenes.
Now,
I miss
yes,
cutscenes.
that's what I'm meaning is
actually yes. Okay, good.
yes, I'm meaning the cutscenes. There are way too many cutscenes. Games don't challenge people enough. The tutorials hold their hands too much. Those are the things that bother me about modern games.
I agree with you to a degree. I think that for me, I think that yes, I don't like having my hand held so much. There are some games like well can't even say right now. I don't even know. There are so many, but there are so many games that just hold your hand through the experience. But there are some games where it's kind of acceptable for people. So
yeah.
obviously people who don't have much time or they've got some sort of impairment or something,
Yeah.
they need these games to hold their hands. But I want the option to be there. I don't want it to be thrust upon everyone. I want there to be hey, this game is going to be a bit mean to you, but here's the option to choose this mode if you need it for whatever reason. But I want to get bullied by my game.
I can think of like one series that like I know the reason why it holds your hand, but like it doesn't have to, because it didn't usually. It didn't until modern entries. Pokemon.
Okay.
Like it didn't like so okay.
Ashton's face.
I mean, it never was like hard though. You know what I mean? It was
No,
just
it
kind of
wasn't
just like figure it
hard.
out. You know?
It wasn't hard, but I hate like I don't hate the game itself. I hate how much of the game is a tutorial. Sun and Moon. I
Yeah.
hate Sword and Shield.
Gabe is so full of hate. I want to get you a shirt that says hate on it. You're a hater. You're so full of it.
And the thing is, like,
no, it's great.
I
Okay.
like the series. I
Yeah.
do like the series. I am excited for ZA. But like, I just don't like how Sword and Shield held your hand. I liked Hop as a character until he just started telling you how, wow, you remember that this typing is strong
Yeah,
against this typing.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm fighting you right before we are going to the Elite Four. What are
That's
you
a
talking about?
that is a perfect actually. I didn't even think about it. Because modern Pokemon games will tell you if the Pokemon or the move that you're about to use is super effective against the Pokemon you're using it on, right?
Mhm.
That is not a thing that was in the old
No.
games. You just needed to know what the type chart was.
Yeah.
And so I can see where some people would argue that that makes it better or more accessible because they don't have to memorize an entire type chart
Mhm.
if they're like a new player. But then people like me would be like, I don't know, man, just learn it. Like I don't like I guess because it's unfair because I've been playing Pokemon since I was literally in diapers, so like I've literally know the type chart like the back of my hand, but it's still kind of one of those things where I'm just kind of and then the games were never hard, but
No.
they've also gotten so much easier to the point where like Hop, in your example, is such a pushover that I'm never threatened by him at
Yeah.
all. But like I'll run into Blue or May, and if I'm not prepared, like she can whoop me, you
Mhm.
know. So it's like
I'm sorry, Ashton.
I
I just
get it.
got like this fantastic visual of you coming out of the womb with like a giant grid chart of all the Pokemon.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
Just like your
And I
mum
was
pushed
like,
you out,
here,
and then
we'll
you came,
go.
and then they were like, "Oh, hey, what else is in there? Oh, this huge chart of Pokemon. Okay, how did that get in
I
there?
got a Game Boy in there. You got to go back in.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Let me get my
Uh,
stuff first.
yeah. Yeah. But
Oh
those
dear.
those are the bigger things of like modern games that I'm not a big fan of. Like
Yeah.
cinematics, like having a game look pretty. Because I am 110% a person. You could probably tell because my favorite game is Journey. I love games that are artistic. I love
Yeah.
games that look good.
Yeah.
But when you are going and making the games look good at the detriment of gameplay, that's a problem to me. Like
Hmm.
I like walking simulators. Like and that is about as bare bones of gameplay as you can get, but some games in that genre do that well. But modern
Yeah.
games are like, here's a cinematic. Okay, cool. How long is it? It's 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
bit,
don't,
I get
I
what
mean,
you
hey,
mean, a bit
let's
much.
go to Metal Gear Solid where it's like 2 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like the king, you know.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. Like that's just Kojima being Kojima. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
weird because cutscenes to me when I was playing in like PS2 era, they always felt like a little treat. You know,
They
like
were.
you played the
Yeah.
game and then you got to a point where there's a cutscene. You're like, oh, this is my reward for playing the game, and I get to see a thing now. But now it's kind of like lost that reward, and it's kind of just a part of the game now. Like you're playing God of War, or even one of my favorite games, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and you're playing, you're slashing dudes, you're fighting dudes, whatever, and then it transitions into a cutscene, and then seamlessly goes back behind the bag, and you're playing the game again, and I don't think that that's bad. I think that's
Mhm.
a natural evolution of where games are going, where they're mixing the
Yeah.
two cinematic and the gameplay. But I think there is a magic lost in just having the cutscenes be like, this is a specific reward for you playing the game, and here it is. Like the game is its
Mhm.
own separate thing from it. And I don't, that's definitely one of the things that we've lost since moving to the modern era.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna say with so there are certain games where I play and I dread a cutscene. For example, anything that's a Soulspawn, because I know that if there's a cutscene in the middle of a boss fight, that's because I'm about to
Phase
hit
two,
stage
let's
two,
go.
and I'm like, no. And then
Yeah.
sometimes there's a third one, and I'm like, what, why? So but that's what's so funny is that they use the cutscene as the dreaded cutscene of, oh, I'm about to get my S kicked in. While there are games like Halo growing up where I'd be trying to do regret on legendary, absolute nightmare or Gravemind, and then I'm just like clawing my way through it, trying to get to the end, and then I get rewarded with a cutscene for persevering so aggressively. And I'm like, oh, thank God, it's such a beautiful treat
Yeah.
to have.
Mhm.
There are some games that just don't bother with cutscenes as much anymore, and just kind of put it into it. Like Control didn't have any actual like cutscenes really, except maybe one or two
Mhm.
moments here and there. Everything was like part of it, but that's kind of
Yeah.
like because the whole game looked like a damn cutscene. It was so pretty and
Yeah.
the way that everything happens. But yeah, I miss when cutscenes felt like a nice treat that I earned and not a half an hour movie I had to sit through.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
You know, the worst things for me is where you watch a cutscene and then something happens and you have to walk to a certain point, and that's about 30 seconds. And then there's another cutscene that lasts for about 5 minutes, and you just think to yourself, What? Why did I waste like 30 seconds just holding the stick to go forward?" That's one
Hmm.
thing that kind of annoys me a little bit.
Yeah,
I enjoy
exactly.
cutscenes either way. I do agree that there's a lot, especially with PlayStation games, Gabe. I think you can probably agree. PlayStation games like to be very,
Hmm.
very cinematic.
Yeah,
And there's
they
nothing wrong
do.
with that. It's
No.
great, like you get immersed in the cutscene, the characters, it's great. But when you've spent like the past 3 minutes just walking, and then you get a cutscene, and then there's more walking afterwards.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with like cutscenes need to feel like you're making progress. Like Halo was great for it. Like you say,
Mm.
like when you were playing Gravemind on Legendary, crawling your way through, fighting all the flood, and literally just crying because you just want it to be over with. And then you get to that cutscene, and you're like, "Thank God for that." It was a nice little way of saying you've done it. Well
It's
done.
Yeah.
finally over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can rest now. You can rest.
Yeah, I actually you said that as well. It made me think of BioShock again because I just love BioShock. BioShock 1 and Infinite didn't really have any actual like cutscenes. It was always from like the player's perspective. One of the greatest things is walking into that room and spoilers, seeing Would You Kindly just like slapped over a wall and you making that
What a twist.
discovery. Yeah, I won't talk about it
Yes.
more if Gabe's acting like I don't know what Gabe's reaction was, but I'm going to be careful what I say for people. Um, but there's nothing better than seeing that, or like when, oh God, so how do I talk about this without spoiling it? So with Infinite, when you are confronting Comstock, and that's all I'm going to say about the entire ending of Infinite, and being in the first person perspective and witnessing everything, and or having Elizabeth kind of pull you to her and seeing like her eyes just kind of looking into you and being and telling her like everything, like really bearing her soul and how emotional that was. But never at any point when I was playing Bioshock 1 or Infinite did I go, oh, I'm in a cutscene, or I'm being like rewarded with a cutscene. I was progressing and it felt so natural and had such a beautiful flow to it. I never felt like I was watching a movie because I was the movie.
That's
So
a that's a another point about the old and new stuff, right? Where new stuff, it sure can be more cinematic, it can be all this other stuff, but like voice acting, it's just like a thing we expect. We expect it to be good, right?
Yep.
Like that was not a thing in old games. Like it was either
no.
text or the voice acting was there, but it was generally pretty bad, right? Like it took a while for the standard to be professional voice acting, right? Like
Yes.
did you even look at like the first Final Fantasy that had voice acting 10 and like it's definitely a mixed bag. It has that old like anime dub feel where they haven't quite figured out how to translate anime writing to English words. And that's something that we take for granted now that I think is actually kind of impressive about old games when you can find an old game that tells a really emotional story, but it's just text. It is only text, or even maybe the voice acting is bad, but it works anyway. Like that's something that new games definitely have a leg up on old games for. But I also find kind of impressive when an old game does manage to create a emotional, gripping narrative through just text or sprites or low poly characters that can't emote and stuff like that. Like that's stuff they had to work through and like just figure out. And we are so like spoiled by high fidelity graphics and big emotions on characters' faces and Troy Baker and all these other great
Yeah.
voice actors giving like their best performances. Like that's not a thing we used to have, and it's something that, you know, I we definitely take for granted now, but it's definitely a big difference between the two.
It's why
Um,
the older games were so why things like Halo and Mass Effect have stood out for me for
yeah,
so long
yeah.
because they were so fantastic and phenomenally acted and Keith David is in both of them. I think that's a
I
good
know.
coincidence. So that helps.
Wait, I wish I had his
Yeah.
voice.
Me too.
When you were talking about bad voice acting, instantly I just went to Resident Evil. Like that is
Yeah, me
the
too.
quintessential series for terrible
I
dialogue.
even think
Me
like Devil May
too.
Cry 1.
You were
Like,
almost a Jill Sandwich.
I have a
Uh
rope here.
oh wow. That is not good. That is not good.
Barry
So I am
Burton,
curious.
best character.
We'll go ahead and start wrapping up a little bit here. I am curious because a lot has changed between old games and new games. There's a lot about new games that have been introduced, for better or for worse. And so I'm curious, in terms of things that we see in new games versus old games, we're talking microtransactions, we're talking subscriptions, we're talking crossplay, we're talking autosaves. Like, which of those do you despise the most, and which one can you not live without anymore?
Mm,
Microtransactions can just go die,
yeah,
as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
think
want battle
you'd be hard
passes to
pressed to
leave.
argue against that.
I want
yeah.
battle passes to leave. I want item shops to just burn in the fires of hell. I hate them. Every single time I see a game's got, why does Suicide Squad have an item shop? Why does it have an item shop? Why does it have coins? Why does it have this? Why? It's yeah. Every single time I see that, um, I just turn off instantly. Here's a quick question: has anyone ever actually bought a battle pass before? Okay, I'll hold my hand up and say yes, I have as well for Infinite, and I've only
For
managed to
audio,
do
just to
like
say,
about a
me and
quarter.
Ashton just put our hands up, just
Yeah,
so they,
Straight,
yeah.
like straight away, yeah. There was three of us. The only one that didn't do it was Gabe.
yeah.
Gabe has
He's the
respect for his
stalwart.
bank account.
He's better than us.
I'm
He's holding down the
He's
fort over
stronger than
there.
us.
Like
I don't really play a lot of those type of games
Yeah.
personally.
I just play Master Duel every month, so like I automatically get the pass every month. But it's an
Yeah.
example of like a good battle pass where you make the money back and then some to use on the next one, and you the rewards are nice because it's one of the battle passes you can level up first and then buy the pass and get all those rewards back that you missed. So
That's
that's
why I
one of the
like
better
Rainbow
ones, but
Six
the
Siege's
toxic
Battle
ones are the really
Pass,
bad
The
ones.
thing is,
but now they're bad.
I'd buy a battle pass for a game I really like.
Yeah.
I've actually considered buying a Helldivers 2 battle pass because I love that game. I love it to pieces. I think it's
Mhm.
absolutely incredible. And I'm more than happy to give them money. That's fine because I appreciate everything they've done, even after the whole PSN
Well,
Steam
they've made a good
fiasco.
game, so they deserve
Yeah,
your money,
that's
is how
it.
you see it. That, yeah,
But then,
fair.
yeah, exactly. That's fine. That's understandable. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with paying a little bit more so I can get some rewards. But then nostalgia plays a part into it because back in the day, again, like in Halo, we had all the armor customization, we had all the skins, we had everything. You could literally just get it as by playing the game instead of just forking over $10 for more
Yeah.
stuff. And in Helldivers, there's at least like about 10 different battle passes, so that's at least $100 just going towards the battle passes for more cosmetics. So I don't, it's a big gray area, and I think kind of like you don't see that many season passes now. Remember when season passes were a thing? When you got that like
Get all the
in
DLC
tandem
and
with the
stuff.
game? Yeah, exactly. That isn't a thing anymore, and I think give
I think
it maybe
Starfield
a
did
couple
it,
of
didn't they?
years. Did they?
Yeah. Yeah, they
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I paid for the early access to Starfield just because I wanted it because I was bored. And it came with the DLC eventually when that came out, and that wasn't great either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but that's the thing. You very rarely see stuff like that anymore. But that was a huge thing back in the day.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think within like the next couple of years, there's going to be a new thing that people introduce. There's always going to be new things that come and new things that go.
Actually, speaking of new things, yeah, actually, you just said the Starfield season pass gave early access to the game. I think Avowed is
Yeah.
doing that. That's going to
It's a
be
new
out a
thing.
week early or like 5 days early if you pay extra money. Like, there's a lot of games now doing that where you just pay for the premium edition and you'll get it early, which is quite cheeky. But I mean, if you're stupid like me, you'll do it. So, you know,
Yeah, I don't really. That's one of the things I've seen people get mad about that before, but I kind of like. I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, if you want to pay $5, $10 to play this game, get really
yeah,
excited for a couple days early. Like, how does that hurt me? Like, it
It's your
doesn't,
yeah.
unless
choice.
it's like, yeah, like
I feel
unless it's like a
silly
really
doing
heavy
it.
story game and like you
Yeah.
start being an asshole and like posting all the spoilers online. As long as you're not doing that,
Yeah.
like, I don't.
Well,
I'll
that's the thing.
wait, dude.
I'm afraid of spoilers, and I'm just really I enjoy just getting to things as quickly as possible. If I can watch something earlier, I will because I just want to have it as soon as possible and then move on with my life from it. I want to reap all the juicy benefits. I want to enjoy all the happiness and endorphins I get from playing games as soon as I can, and then move on to the next thing. So yeah, I think
I
I don't.
definitely agree.
Fair.
I definitely agree with Sam about microtransactions being a gray area because in a lot of games they're really predatory and bad, right? Like they don't really need to be there or they're super toxic. But then in other games, like you could consider like Warframe, right? That's a completely free to play game. That's how it survives, right? That's the only way that it lives, and people love it. It's a good game. If you make a great game and then ask people to help support you, sometimes you can get that success and you can hit that magic and people will support you. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It lets a lot of like free to play stuff and smaller stuff survive. But we also are in an unfortunate world where games are so, especially AAA games, are so expensive to make now, and they take so long that these big developers and publishers think that they know that they need to make a lot of that money back, and they think the way to do that is we'll try to make the best game we can, I guess, but let's shove a battle pass in there. Let's shove different bonuses for pre-order stuff. Let's try to get people to pay more for early access. Let's try to do X, Y, and Z that has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It is just a way to try to make as much money as possible from it because they're already
Hmm.
investing so much in it that they feel like they have to. And that's just kind of like it's an unfortunate part of the gaming industry right now that I it's hard to see where it goes and if we'll ever get out of it or if we're just going to fall more deeper and deeper into it. I really wouldn't be able to say. It's a tough
Yeah.
position.
I wonder
But
how many games this year are going to start coming out 5 days early and charging people a £30 premium on top
I
of
wouldn't be
like Game
surprised if it's
Pass or
all of
whatever it
them,
is. Well,
like
that's
all the
that's what I'm
AAA
worried
ones.
about after the success of Starfield doing that, Like I feel like it's going to become a part of the new norm with microtransactions.
this is kind of what people forget as well. Like I'm not saying, that microtransactions are great or whatever. Like obviously I can't stand them. I think they should all just leave. And we should kind of go back to the old days, but I'm old, so whatever. But what I was basically saying is like I think people forget it's a business at the end of the day, and a business
Yeah.
has to make money to stay alive.
Yeah.
However, there is a right way and a wrong way to go about doing business. When you have something like FIFA, for example, where everything is held by these ultimate packs that you can spend money on, or you can get coins to spend them on. And get more players or whatever. I don't know. I've never played a FIFA game in my life. I don't really know if everything I'm saying is correct or not. But stuff like that, where especially a company like EA is notorious for stuff like that, that's where it becomes a bit predatory. Like remember Star Wars Battlefront 2 when that was coming out, and that whole fiasco with it, where you had to like spend hours and hours and hours to get Darth Vader. That to me is going across the line. It's fine trying to monetize it if what you are giving is good enough. Like I have maybe considered getting a skin or two in Marvel Rivals, but one skin is at least £15. I can't justify that. That just to me is too much. Battle passes already is like around about what, $10, £10, something like that per battle pass. That's already too much and you get quite a lot of stuff. But to get a specific skin that's about £15, that's way too much. But the thing is that people sometimes don't really care all that much, or they're not good with their money, or they may have like some sort of gambling addiction, and that ultimately factors into them purchasing it at the end. That's where the whole Star Wars Battlefront 2 thing came from, because there were just so much egregious microtransactions, and
Right.
EA especially is notorious for that. So I don't mind people trying to monetize it. It's just that whenever I see coins or V-Bucks or whatever you want to call them, where you can buy them to get more stuff, I just kind of think to myself, I kind of groan a little bit where I'm like, oh, right. I kind of roll my eyes and just move on to the next thing. Some games I don't even understand why some games even have stuff like that, like Assassin's Creed
I was gonna
Unity.
say,
I
yeah.
don't understand it. Why does it have coins where I can buy a gun that'll let me kill three people in one shot? Why? That's just pay to win.
Wasn't it Odyssey as well had like a pay to win thing where it was really hard to level up, so
Loads.
they made you, or like it kind of convinced people to spend money to
Yeah,
just level up in the game, and that to me is defeats the purpose of the game.
yeah. You're just
It's
spending
like
more money.
if From Software was like, hey, if you give us an extra 20 quid on top of your purchase, then we'll give you what you need to defeat these bosses to get you through the game faster. And it's like, then what was the point in playing it?
Yeah.
You know?
It was like
Just
Shadow of
like,
War had that had like
oh
loot boxes
yes.
in the single player game. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange.
I need to change the battery to my camera. Just be a second.
No
Okay.
problem. One thing I was going to say about because the other thing that you mentioned, Ashton, was what can we not live without? And to be
Mm.
fair, there's been a lot of good things in modern games which we never got back in the 360 PS3 era. One of them being crossplay. I'm
Yeah,
so happy that a lot of games are doing that now.
100%.
Phasmophobia came out on the PlayStation, and
Got it on
in
Xbox.
my group of friends, we have one guy that is a PC player, and now we can play with him, and that's great. We've had such
Right.
a good time with it.
Is it
Like,
cross-platform on PlayStation?
yeah, it's
Should
cross-platform.
we
Yeah,
play?
if you want, yeah.
That'd be
Why
great.
not? You see,
That's
the
the beauty of it, right? Like you just
thing
be
is,
like, it doesn't matter what you're playing on.
thing is with
Yeah.
my friends is they're always like, "Oh, let's play this game," and then we play it for an hour, and then we never touch it ever again. So like, I
Oh.
spent £15 on that, and you guys only played it once with me. So
Oh, I play
you
it all the
know,
time. Love it.
crossplay is great. I love
Yep.
crossplay.
Yeah.
I've not got any problems with crossplay. I'm so happy that more games are doing this.
Frustrated there's still not more. Like Elden Ring, Night
Yeah,
Ring's not gonna have it. And it's like, why?
Yeah,
Why are
Ashton
we
and I
separating
cried
the player
inside
base?
because we were like, we could play together. No, you can't.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Can't do it. Can't do it. It's
Nope.
like why? Especially because they're forcing you to be either solo or three. You can't do two. So it's like
It's
even
yeah.
more restrictive and dividing. So I'm like, I don't know, man.
I
Like
don't
that's
play it on
tough.
my own. I only have one other friend that I can play it with.
Like
Unacceptable.
tough. That's tough. And I just hope you can queue with like a rando. Like you can have two people in a party and then queue with a rando. I really hope
Yeah,
that
I
that's
like
a
making
thing.
friends with randoms. That's what like Journey's all about, is
And then
bumping
we
into
also have
strangers
somebody
on
to
the way.
blame if we lose, you know?
Yeah, blame the random. I love blaming the random.
just blame the guy with the microphone. Always works.
Yeah.
It's like it's your fault. You're talking too much.
I don't really
So
know like what else there is that I could live without. Sammy made up a great point with the cross-platform. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that's like one of the only things really from the modern day. I think that most things in the past are just have carried over that I like that are
I'm
still
gonna
here.
piss some Twitter folks off.
Oh
I'm gonna say
dear.
yellow
Uh-oh.
ladders. I can't live without the yellow ladders. I can't do it. I can't
Oh.
do it. Gamers are stupid. Okay, I can't find where to go. Give me the yellow ladder. I've got to be able to know where to climb up. Okay, I don't know
Is
where to go.
is is that where it has like the yellow paint or something where it's like
Yeah,
clearly
Yeah,
yeah.
the yellow
Ashton.
ladder problem.
Mm,
Bruh. No, I
I'm
want
like,
an option
God,
to
I don't
turn
know
that
where I'm going.
off. I want an
yeah,
option to turn that off. Give me the
yeah.
yellow ladders, but let me turn it off so I don't have to do
Every
it.
time people say I want to turn it off, and then they try and they turn it off, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Like that is always happens, and that's why the yellow ladders exist.
You
Yeah.
know what? I see what you mean. I don't completely disagree with the yellow ladder situation. However,
Just it doesn't have to be a yellow ladder, but just
yeah,
like
there's got to
you
be
know,
better. There's got to be another color or something else that someone can do that makes me not want to like
How about a green
cry.
ladder?
It's
A green ladder.
yeah, let's go.
it
Too
never
happy.
it doesn't make sense. Like the whenever there is the yellow ladder or yellow cliff, whatever, um, it never makes sense in the area.
But
It's
That's
like,
my
who
like
problem.
cares? Games don't make sense. Like we're running around doing crazy stuff all the time. It never makes sense. It never had to make sense. Why can my character,
You know what?
who
No, no, no.
is just himself with a t-shirt, be able to carry 100 pounds worth of like guns and rocks and stuff on his body in his
Pockets.
pocket? Like that
I've
never made sense. It's
I've
fine. It's
got
just a
an
thing, you know. It doesn't make
nah,
sense.
mate. Look. I slightly agree with you, but there are better ways to do it. Like someone going, "Oh, hey, look, a ladder. Oh, look, what's that over there?" Like you can have other NPCs communicate with you and
But
give
But
you.
then,
counterpoint to
but then
that.
people will be mad that like the NPCs are holding their hand to take them to the ladder. You
But
know,
But
well,
it's
the
a more
then
thing
you
is,
can't
creative
win.
way to get
gamers
around
are
it.
never happy. We're never happy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're
no, we're never
really
happy,
cynical people.
Ashton.
I know it. That's what I call it. I kind of make fun of the yellow ladder thing. I call it like a fake issue because it's like
Yeah.
a thing that I see on Twitter from time to time that pop up that like nobody cares about this.
There
Like
are real problems in the gaming industry,
there's
and
more
yellow
stuff
ladders
going on
isn't
than
one of
oh
them.
no, there's a yellow ladder. Like
That's
that's a
just
fake
Twitter in a
issue.
nutshell.
Like
Yeah.
sure, maybe you have an opinion on like I don't want to validate somebody's opinion, but like nobody is playing a video game and having the yellow ladder, yellow box, whatever kind of thing happening, and then being like, "This game sucks. I hate it because yellow ladders." Like that's not happening. It's not. Like get over it. Like it's
Literally
fine.
unplayable. Literally
Literally
unplayable.
unplayable. I hate yellow. It scares me. I'm sorry, guys. I can't play.
Oh my God, it's
But
Green Lantern.
speaking of, a lot of games get changed and put stuff like that in when they get remade. And
Mhm.
so I want to go to Gabe real quick, and this will be the last thing that we talk about before we wrap up this podcast. Remakes. I kind of want to just get your general thoughts on remakes and remasters in the modern era and how you feel about the frequency with which we get them and how they're kind of proliferating in the gaming sphere. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it a mix? What do you think?
Look, considering like Ashton, like my take on like rebirth and remake. Like
Do I? I don't know if I know your
I
take on it.
okay, fair enough. I think that remakes and remasters are being done too much to games that were successful. I think that like I
Interesting.
get that it needs to go to a different generation. I get that. Like people obviously want to play that game, but some people are too much of like they don't want to play this older game or they don't have the means to, et cetera, et cetera. But like for example, the Dead Rising Deluxe remaster, it is the thing is that it is remake regardless of like how you cut it, it's a remake. um my big thing is that I'm big into games preservation, so when it comes to that, I don't like remakes to be considered the way to preserve a game,
Ooh, okay. I
because
like that take.
when it comes to, for example, well, again, going back to Dead Rising deluxe remaster, uh it it changes things, like legitimately changes dialogue, it changes how it looks, it changes X, Y, and Z. Now of course the looks aspect could be for the better for some people, but of course when you're talking about preservation, you don't want it to look better, you want it to look the same. And I feel like that's the problem with making remasters and remakes and doing things like pulling the old version. It's not actually wanting to preserve it. It's just a cash grab. It is, you maybe some people, some developers want to make their game look better or look better for the generation, but I just never see it that way. I just think that they
Hmm.
want more money, so, and they know that this was successful, so let's do this.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only one that I'm like excited for is like Croc.
Yeah, let's go.
Yes.
The
Love
return of the
Croc.
king right there.
Yes, exactly.
Nicole, what do you think about the whole remake remaster discussion
Yeah,
discourse?
I have so many opinions spread out across so many different games. This is the problem. So, like, for example, I love BioShock, and my favorite thing is that I've basically 100%ed that, except for that stupid DLC that I don't like. The Clash in the Clouds DLC, is that what it is? Ugh,
Oh,
why
it's
was that in
horrible.
there? Yeah, it's horrible. And so I was like, I need a new excuse to go and play BioShock again, because I've 100%ed it. As I just I want an excuse to play it again and get the achievements again. Because I get a nice little happy little rush when I get the little pop-up.
But
And
the
So
so,
good.
but yeah, Bioshock the
yeah,
Collection, that was fun, but that was quite a pointless remake. It wasn't that many years after Bioshock Infinite. There wasn't really a need for it. My biggest thing as well is that Xbox is backwards compatible.
Mhm,
So a lot of their games still work. You don't need to remake or remaster a game. It's like a nice treat. I'm okay with like Halo, the Master Chief Collection. It is fantastic.
mhm.
The most important thing for me was I was like everything that was broken in Halo 2 should still be as broken as it was because I want to take advantage of this game and get all the
yeah, like
achievements I
don't fix the speedrun
know?
stuff. Like,
Yeah,
don't do
don't
that.
No.
fix
Mhm.
that stuff. And they didn't. They left it exactly as it was. I'm annoyed at like the Halo 1 anniversary thing they did, and then they put that in the Master Chief Collection because they did that stupid thing. And it happened to me a bunch where the new modern graphics completely ignored the tone of Halo 1. And there'll be moments as well where they change the dimensions of things. So you'd be shooting like a covenant, like the other side of a valley, and then you were like, why aren't my bullets going anywhere? And then you'd cut back to the other the older generation graphics, and the tree is a different size. So you were
Yeah.
actually shooting a tree the whole time you didn't realize because I don't know why they did that. Silly things
Mhm.
like that that are broken. But
Yeah.
there are
Are you
games.
talking about the beginning of 343 Guilty Spark where like it's all just fluorescent and it's
Yes,
bright and
too much.
everything?
It
Yeah.
ruined everything. I want to be scared. I played Halo 1, the Master Chief Collection ones on the new graphics because I was like, I don't even need my flashlight. I can see everything clear as day. It sucks. But so I think Halo 2 and was perfect, and it was something that needed the graphical upgrade.
Mhm.
Just nice little, and also the multiplayer has since been like shut down, and so the original one. So
Mhm.
putting it onto the newer generation is great because you lose that. But then there's stuff like Resident Evil 2 remake. I love it. It's fantastic because the original game plays so poorly for me that I couldn't even go back and try and play the original. But the thing is, this kind of touching on what Gabe said, it means that the originals are now lost. I no longer see Resident Evil 2 remake as remake. I see Resident Evil 2 remake as Resident Evil 2 because that is the only version that I can like actually play
Hmm.
properly because the older ones are too broken for me. So there's a level of like I've completely not completely forgotten, but I'm forgetting a lot of that original stuff. So there are so many pros and cons to remakes and remasters. I think remasters to me, if it's a way to keep the game alive, then yes, I'm all for it. But there is a level of like, oh, stop cash grabbing it,
Yeah.
PlayStation. Stop doing, or Skyrim, stop just doing the same thing again and again. You're not adding anything special. You're just taking my money here.
Hmm.
And,
You mean you don't want The Last of Us remastered, remastered,
this is what
remake?
I'm sick and
Hmm.
tired of hearing that. Yeah,
Yes, me
yeah.
too.
But the one thing
I
that I
love
was really
that.
disappointed in was Dark Souls 1 remaster. I would have loved a remake of that. I would have loved for them to wait, not bother with a remaster, and just waited and done a proper remake because I think that that's something that's going to deserve it in the near future.
Yeah.
So,
Like Demon Souls
yeah.
got one.
Exactly.
Mm.
That's all I want. And why did I get a just reskin of Dark Souls 1? I'm still on the struggle bus with trying to
Although
go
I
back
will
and play it.
say they did put Omni rolling in the remaster.
I know,
Does that
but that's
completely change it?
it's not everything though, is it? You know,
No.
it's just yeah. So I've got so many things that I like and dislike about it. And there are games that do it right and games that do it wrong. Halo
Hmm.
1 was wrong, Halo 2 was right. BioShock was kind of wrong. They didn't really do anything to it,
Well,
but
see,
Resident Evil is
this is a
right.
this is a jab at Xbox, so it goes in jest. But the reason why they put BioShock Remaster is because Xbox is backwards compatible, but nobody has an Xbox, so you got to put it on PlayStation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you go ahead. That's that. You know what? That is a really good dig, and I respect it because
I agree.
that is true.
Like you
Yeah.
got to remaster it because PlayStation people got to play it. You know,
Yeah, it
that's who's
did
gonna
feel a
buy
bit
it.
cheap though. There's
Yeah,
loads
yeah, yeah,
of back and forth. So
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, like I said, my biggest thing is just that it's not an actual way to preserve the games in a
yeah,
traditional sense. I absolutely hate the fact that a lot of developers will just unlist the original version once a
Oh yeah, I hate
remaster
that.
is.
Oh gosh.
I feel that it is extremely scummy. Because, like, here's the thing. I would, am I going to actually play it? Probably not, but I want the people who want to play it, who maybe have learned late, to play it.
yeah.
Yep.
That's my one of my issues with Resident Evil 3 is that it felt like a DLC for Resident Evil 2. It was
Mhm.
nothing like the original Resident Evil 3. They missed out, they cut out so many things that made Resident Evil 3 what it is.
Mhm.
And like and now going forward, people Resident Evil 3 is going to be like a lost memory. And
Yeah.
this new Resident Evil 3 that's not very good is going to be the thing that people remember going forward. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
sucks.
exactly. I am big in game preservation, and developers aren't.
That's interesting. We'll have to. I think remakes and remasters are will probably be an interesting discussion that we could probably have in a completely its own podcast as well because
Yeah,
there's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many so
yeah,
much I have so much that I could say about like Final Fantasy 7 and how that works versus something like Dark Souls like Nicole mentioned or there's so many different nuances to that conversation that I think we probably should go ahead and do a podcast with
yeah,
that by itself because that's definitely a big topic that's just going to get more and more relevant as we keep going because I don't they're successful. I don't really see
yeah.
a world where they stop doing these things.
No.
But there's definitely like there's interplay there. There's ups, there's downs, there's pros and cons. I think there's some remakes that are very well deserved, and there's some that are very
Hmm.
not. And there's remasters that I think are worth like the Okami HD remaster. I think is great because it is just Okami. Like there's not anything different except that it is HD now. And that's great. You're preserving the original game without changing any of the elements. You're not taking away any of the original vision. You're not adding new things that weren't there before. So somebody who plays Okami on PS2 and somebody who plays Okami HD, they're gonna have the same experience except one person got to play it in 1080p.
Yep.
Like that's a perfect remaster to me.
Yeah.
But when you get to remakes, it gets a little more
Yep.
murky because of how that all works. So
Yeah, exactly.
Sam, I haven't fully heard from you yet. What do you have any quick take on the remakes, remasters, or anything like that? Like where do you stand on this stuff?
Well, firstly, all good points. I agree on game preservation. I agree that there's a big discourse between remasters and remakes. I think that remakes are a very good way to refine what was wrong about the actual original game. but sometimes remakes can completely just change the original into something completely different, like Silent Hill 2, for example. Silent Hill 2, the original, was not a third-person survival horror game. It was still a
Good
survival
point.
horror game, but you had fixed camera angles that followed you around. You had tank controls. That stuff is now outdated, so they're obviously gonna make it a bit more accessible for people. However, that being said, you do kind of lose a little bit of the identity from the original. Now the camera is behind James Sunderland. On top of that as well, they added a lot more enemies. They've refined the combat. The combat in Silent Hill 2, you didn't actually have to kill any of them. You could just walk straight past them. That's the whole benefit of survival horror sometimes. The same thing with Resident Evil, but for the remake, it's like they force you into these situations. Like they put you in a room, they kicked you in the room, they closed the door, and they just said, right, fight all these people, then you can move on. And that's how it kind of felt. Now, the thing is with that though is that the story is still pretty much the exact same. There's a few changes here and there, but the story is still pretty much the exact same of it. So you still kind of keep the identity of it and the content, but at the same time, you also change what made it unique in the first place. Dead Rising's kind of similar, but I think Dead Rising has received quite a bit of censorship with some of the things because I noticed that there was a few lines that have been completely cut out and replaced, and a few character
Mm,
models which have been completely changed as well.
yeah.
I don't really agree with that. I kind of think that it should stay the exact same. Just because it's got nicer graphics and you can move when you're aiming, it doesn't matter. You still need to have, what the original was like. You still need to basically just copy and paste it. Um, Obviously, censorship is huge. There's a lot of things which I won't really get into. But there are a lot of things which do affect games these days where you do have to take things out of the older games and put it into the newer ones in order for it to actually get a physical release, or to any release whatsoever. But on the flip side of that, I do think that remakes are good at refining some of what the previous original game didn't do particularly well. Like again for Dead Rising, you couldn't move when you're aiming. So you had to just stand completely still in a corner and just start shooting them. Um,
Hmm.
I really like the idea that they've introduced autosaving. However, autosaving is not permanent. It only happens in key events. Whereas in the original, you have to walk all the way to a bathroom to save, and then you had to progress, and then you spent 3 hours without saving. Next thing you know, you're dead, and you have to do all of it again. Some parts of that can be fun if it's like a survival horror. Like Resident Evil does that really well. Like, I think that's one of Resident Evil's biggest strengths. But for Dead Rising, I do like the idea of just adding an autosave feature just to make it a little bit easier, but not too easy to the point where you just feel like you're completely breezing through. I don't know. There's positives and negatives. I do think that lazy remasters, they should stop doing that. Like I played the BioShock HD remaster. That's actually the first time I actually ever played it. Um, and I'm not someone who knows the details between the original and the newer one besides, oh, nice shiny graphics.
That was it.
That's
Don't
the
worry.
only thing I can really like point out. Besides from that, I was like, oh, this just looks like BioShock and
Yeah.
it plays like BioShock. Um, but yeah, with stuff like that, I just kind of feel like that we should just stop doing that. Sony's an absolute pain in the ass for doing stuff like that. I joked about The Last of Us remastered, but that to me just baffles me. I don't understand why they wanted to do that. Besides from money, that's the only thing I can think of.
Hmm.
Um, but again, going back to what I said earlier, it's a business. If they know for a fact people are going to pick up a remastered version of Last of Us Part 2, then people will, and it has sold really well, and they'll probably do the same thing for the third one when it releases.
Forever and ever
Yeah,
and
they'll
ever.
just keep on going.
Thousand
Yeah.
years
Yep.
from now, they're going to be remastering it for the thousandth time. So,
But I do also
Yep.
think, just going to what Gabe said, just real quick, because I know that we are almost coming up to about 2 hours, I believe. Just real quick before we wrap everything up. I do agree with game preservation. I do think it is important, especially with older titles. I still got some PS1 games that I'll never sell, just because I know for a fact that if I do, I'd have to fork out, my left arm for one. So I'm
Yep.
not doing that.
Yep.
I'm not doing that at all. But at the same time, people who never played the original Silent Hill 2, they've got two options. One is emulation, which even though the emulation is very controversial, I do think it is a good way to play older games if you don't have the funds for it, but I get the controversy behind it. That's how I
Hmm.
played the original Silent Hill 2, and it was fine. There was no problem with it. But I know that morally there's a lot of problems with it, which fair
Right.
enough. The second one is you take out a bank loan and you go and buy a PS2 and you go and find a copy of the physical game. And a Silent Hill 2 copy goes for around about £90 in the UK. It's a very, very expensive game.
Hmm.
Plus, on top of that, a controller and a PlayStation 2 and a memory card as well, because we didn't have built-in hard drives back
Yep.
then. You had to buy a physical thing. So that's going to easily come up to maybe around about £150 just to play one game.
Yep.
People obviously don't have that much money. So when a remaster comes out or when a remake comes out, people are going to think, oh, well, Silent Hill 2 was a great game. I'll play the remake and I'll see what that's like. And then they'll like the remake and then they might check out the original game. So I
Yeah.
think there's always going to be discourse about it. There's always going to be discussions about it. But I think, as I think a general consensus, there is good things and there is bad things about it. Definitely.
I think that kind of is a good wrap up for the whole old versus
Yep.
new conversation in general. Is there's
Yeah.
definitely, nuance to it. There is no, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. If you're an old gamer, then you might just prefer the retro stuff. If you're, more of a new age, or you just prefer things to be smoother and more streamlined, you prefer the more modern stuff. But definitely some mixed things there. Definitely good pros and cons on both sides. But that's going to be about wrapping it up for this episode of the Smash Jump podcast. If you like this episode, make sure that you subscribe to Smash Jump's YouTube channel. Comment down below any of your thoughts about remakes, remasters, new games, old games, anything like that. Remember, be respectful, like the video, and I'll let Gabe take it away for the Patreon that we have to help
Yes.
keep us independent.
Yep. And
Ooh.
join our Patreon for early access to this podcast as well as uncensored version. Follow me, Gabe _REISINGER on Twitter. You can also follow Smash Jump, and that is Smash Jump DOTCOM on Twitter. We also have a Blue Sky, Mastodon, and Facebook. Those are all Smash Jump. Well, Blue Sky is smashjump.bsky.app, but or .social.
It's a lot of
Absolutely. You can
dots.
also,
Yep. Yes.
A lot of
absolutely.
dots.
You can also follow me, your host,
Yes.
on Twitter at Smashing Games or on Blue Sky at ashtonlavelle.bsky.social. And also, go ahead and throw out there, last episode, our first ever podcast episode, was about our most anticipated games of 2025. Hard to say words.
Yes.
A great year.
Go ahead and you can just check that out if that interests you, because we had a lot to say about all the games coming out. All the new games that we were just dunking on. All that they're coming out this year. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. Nicole, Sam, y'all have anything to plug? A YouTube channel, Twitter,
I'm
anything
gonna
like that?
plug it because I can. So I do.
Yes.
No, not many people are gonna care about this, but for people who do care, I do a podcast every Sunday, at 8 p.m. at the moment, for Stargate, my favorite show, and we watch the TV show together and discuss it and pick it apart and have fun, and celebrate it. So yeah, if you feel like coming on over, we are the Wormhole Extremists. What a name!
Let's
Twitter
go.
did not like that title. It's based on an episode name. So yeah, we are the Wormhole Extremists. So check us out. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So yeah. Sam has
Any
nothing.
plugs, Sam? No time, no
Yeah.
plugs.
Sorry, it's my turn.
Yes.
At Game Opinion on YouTube, where I just talk about all the stuff that I want to talk about, and nobody listens, which is fine. It's okay, man. It just allows me to get out of my head. It's cool.
Is it
That's
just
important.
do you
is
might
it what?
want to specify how to find it?
That's
'Cause
true,
it-
actually,
yes.
because it's a weird name.
Yes.
So at Gamer, GAMER Pinion PINION. Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
You know what?
On
I should probably actually
YouTube.
specify the Wormhole Extremist is spelled wormhole, then just the letter X, and then sometimes it's a dash, and then Tremists. So
There you go. There you
There
go.
you go,
It's
find
always
that.
weird trying to find these things because
Yeah.
of the icons and different stuff.
Yes.
You can also find me on YouTube. I got my own channel, Ashton Lavelle YT. Pretty easy if you can just look at my name down there. I don't have very many videos, but I'm working on them. I have a video playing and ranking every PS1 launch game. That was fun. And
Cool.
I am in the process of making an Mass Effect Andromeda retrospective, so y'all can check that
Ooh,
out too.
I'll watch
and,
that.
of course, if you enjoyed what you saw here, make sure you come back for the next episode. Don't know 100% what the topic will be, but might just be remakes, remasters. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Again, subscribe if you enjoyed it, like the video, comment down below your thoughts, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.